While nuclear weapons states can exert unlimited violence over even millions of individuals, strong cryptography means that a state, even by exercising unlimited violence, cannot violate the intent of individuals to keep secrets from them. Cryptography is the ultimate form of non-violent direct action.
All right, everyone, welcome to the 137th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Our hosts for today are Satoshi Sean, everyone's best friend, and Greg from Rivet, and me, Joe. I'm your MC today. I think we should rename that. We just for something to change. But for 2024, we should have thought of this something other than Master of Ceremonies. I don't know what to call it.
Well, there needs to be like a streaming reference, right? Like it's a new medium. There has to be some kind of word for that.
It needs to be a new. I agree. So let's think about that. Let's do it. All right. And today's episode is blockchain to recover stolen property. It'll be read a bunch of different ways, or at least a good few questions. So some good questions. So quick update on the WBRT, the Roundtable Layer Ownership Tokens, the governance tokens, the distribution from last week's episode. So every host from last week will receive 888 lot. Every topic contributor from last week will receive 666 lot. It is programmatic. I didn't do that. I'm not a numerologist or any of that crap, but it's kind of funny whenever you see something like that. Last week's theme was nominated by I Am for I Am, who will also receive 666 lot. The ownership tokens come with free edits, very important. So if you're in the layer, free edits, governance votes, most important, and then passive income forever for as long as the show goes on. So all cool stuff. And whether they call it income or not, it's at least a way to earn rewards and reputation from doings and past doings on the show. So it's all good stuff. Theme of the week this week, again, blockchain to recover stolen property. Again, nominated by I Am for I Am. He's just killing it here, right? I Am for I Am. Happy New Year. He's our most consistent questioner, I think. So Anyway, so I guess do we have anything to start off before we go straight to the set of questions? What do you guys want to think about doing here?
I mean, there's so much going on right now, right?
Yeah. So maybe
I'm still processing the idea that Stephen Hawking was a pedo. So
yeah, there's some questions. In fact, maybe we'll get into that. Well, that's a teaser for later. Some of the things that I understand, because there was one thing that might have been a joke and might have not been, but also something that I didn't readily understand until after I saw a couple of comments and like, oh, that's kind of gross. So anyway, a teaser for later. Gross stuff from the elites. So always something to look
also
for.
Something probably more dark than that we have to think about, because one thing that probably is worth pointing out right now is Bill Clinton is also a man who's pushed buttons and seen thousands of people die. This is not a good person.
Yeah, Lisa. I wish she was here. I really wish Lisa was here, because on Tuesday she said maybe he was.
Maybe he was a good guy.
Maybe Bill Clinton is all on our side, and he's just let's get up. And I was like, no. She's like, Hillary's evil. Maybe Bill Clinton. I was like, no.
Okay, I'm going to refresh the questions. We'll again, teaser for later, right? So the questions. Here we can see the questions. And
also for later, I got to be a Russian this morning before I started the show.
What'd you do? Minutes.
I got to be a Russian.
You got to be a Russian? Or did it consist of like drinking a black Russian or?
No, I woke up and there was some breaking news, and I listened to it, and I was like, wow, this is what Russians hear every morning. And now it's to be the same way.
Neat.
More on that later. Right on. Okay, so first question from the great Dayrox. Question: is there any way to recover liquidity tokens from a fraudulent project that had a site where liquidity was provided and the site was removed from the internet? Probably the tokens are still locked in the smart contract, but it's impossible to release them because the website supporting the smart contract no longer exists. So, who wants to start with that one? Who wants to start with that?
I could take a crack.
Yeah, Greg would need to before me. That's like
Go right on.
smart contract.
The
Bullshit.
the rough answer is it depends, right? If these people are clever thieves, then anybody who has been scammed more than once on B&B chain, right, will know this trick, right, where they have in the smart contract code that you put your liquidity into, a blacklist of cannot access or a whitelist of must have this status to access the withdrawal function, right? If that's not there, you should be able to make the calls using just a basic call to the Ethereum network or whichever network you're on, right? So unless they've put in structures to make it so that you can't get money out when you thought you could, whatever signal the website was sending, you can send directly and cause the blockchain to do what it does. Ultimately, that's what all those dApps do, is they sort of pull the strings for you on the universal public backend. So that's one of the really cool things about blockchains is even if a fraudulent project goes down, or a good project goes down for that matter, if you look at Tornado Cash,
That's how I was getting the comment. You
can
kind of
access it still.
You threw me for a loop there, Greg. I was thinking it was all good actors, and then some government entity or something came in and shut down the website.
Could be.
Then how would they be able to get
right? Same thing.
Working with them, okay.
Yeah, it's basically the same because the backend they're accessing is the same one. That's the beauty of a public chain.
Yeah, and I will augment that. There are some cases where you might have a project that requires a second signature beyond yours. But something like liquidity, that shouldn't be there. If you staked your own tokens to a project or to a smart contract or to a liquidity pool, there shouldn't be a permission layer outside of that. It should be that if the website went away, you should still be able to go to that smart contract. And if you hold the liquidity pool tokens, and whether it's NFT or otherwise, you should be able also to even find that contract from that token. So you should be able to go to your wallet, see that token. Yep. There should be if it's on
although be mindful, they oftentimes use proxy contracts to execute commands on that wallet. So look for the thing that you send transactions to in the Etherscan history.
Yeah, and that's
this is on people, or on whatever your block scanner is. Right.
Yeah, a lot of people, if you're talking about locking something up, shouldn't it just automatically release per the smart contract once you hit the time period or whatever the.
Well, if it's time locked, right? But if it's signature locked, then no.
And even if it is time locked, a lot of times it won't do something automatically. It just means that after that time lock, you have to then go in and release it. But it's one of those things that, for example, on the Block Explorer, there will typically be a contract tab. So if you go to that contract, you can see transactions and things. But the important part is you go to the contract tab. There will usually be a read tab or a read interface and a write tab or interface. So the read tab would be to, check. You could put in your address and see what metadata about your liquidity pool. Or if you go to the right side, it'll be where you can, release, burn, stake more, whatever else. So, and you would typically
and it'll tell you what you
need
to send. Yeah. If you want to, you can actually send it from your own endpoint because, and I normally wouldn't plug Rivet, but 3 million requests a month. If we support the network it's on, then then you can sign up for free and use it to directly signal the blockchain once you know where you have to send it.
And I will say one extra added thing to bring up is that there are some contracts. I've not dealt with it with a liquidity pool, but I have dealt with it with a few other contracts where the interface is, how do I say this? It's more complex than a simple field. Like typically you'll have here's a call and you can fill out a couple of fields like here's the address, here's an amount or whatever else. But sometimes they're encoded and it's really ugly and nasty and not ideal. But there are ways to encode the entry for the field that you might have to go to someone technical to figure it out. There might be documentation somewhere to figure it out, but it is still doable, even though it's not going to be as obvious and direct. So anyway, great question. Y'all Weird says this. It is important. It is true. And, as it relates to the topic of today, to recover stolen property, I wouldn't consider it stolen. I would say this is more like abandoned, as if you put, if you had a storage unit and you didn't abandon it, but let's say the storage unit company went out of business and they didn't even go through, they just abandoned it, that you would still have your lock on it. You would probably still have to get in through their locks on the outside, but it's more like that. It'd be more like it's abandoned. That could be. There could be situations where it would be considered stolen, though, for sure. So, and in particular, I guess we should say before we go into that, we could say that there are cases that it is entirely possible that you could have a DEX with an unknown backdoor or something else that they could actually steal the liquidity. God forbid that happens. That would be horrible. But the reason it's possible is because people don't typically check these things. They just trust stuff, even though you're not supposed to. Okay, next question. I am for I am. Question: what about other assets that get registered onto a blockchain? If the owner of an asset is eternalized on a blockchain and that asset is later recovered, proof of ownership can be verified, right? Yes. I'm thinking of deeds, titles, stock, certificates, and other items that are registered, stolen, and then later recovered. Yeah. It could also be for insurance reasons. You might have had a stock certificate that was lost in a fire. There might be something that in insurance, if you can prove, no, I really had this, here's proof of it, here's the data. Could this be a good use of blockchain and a utility that would be a viable business? P.S. Someone's last will and testament would be a good item to post on a blockchain too.
This is like literally the meat and potatoes of where most of the massive value that is in blockchains actually hides.
Yep, I agree.
Like this is why NFTs are more than monkey pictures.
True, and it's, in my opinion, this is kind of where rubber meets the road for virtual versus the physical world. That this is the way that you can use blockchain as something that is very virtual and very ethereal to prove to a court or to prove, no matter where you are in the world. God forbid you're in the U.S. and there's not actually any real law, but if you're somewhere where there actually exists law and people who follow it with honor, you can bring data like this up and prove beyond the shadow of a doubt with that this information is real. And so the best evidence is what you want on chain. So that if that's documents, if it's signatures, if it's video proof, other media, you want that on chain. And whether it's the hash of that stuff, it's still provable. And what the chain gives you is, like say with Dragon Chain, for instance, although we're leveraging Bitcoin and leveraging Ethereum and other chains, it's a way to put something in place that a jury or a judge would understand, right?
Right. Or that I mean, this is particularly crazy. Like when you're in the U.S., the one thing we do have a very, very secure system of is property law documentation, right? Like if you're talking about real estate deeds, the United States has a miraculously uncorrupt system. Pretty much everywhere else, you have to deal with the possibility that someone more powerful than you that wants your thing can just get that office on their side by either threats or graft, right? And take people's land. There are people who, in countries less developed, want to prove they own their property. It's kind of a crapshoot because doing so raises you to the attention of the authorities who are corrupt. We're waiting to steal it. This is something that I think will benefit the world. Have you guys ever heard of the project What 3 Words?
Yes, I think so.
This is the idea is divide the entire map up into 3 by 3 meters square blocks, right? And then give each of them a 3-word name. And the naming is such that each square has a unique name.
It's deterministic.
That's the whole planet divided up into 3-meter blocks.
Yep.
And you can tokenize ownership of those in a way that would allow you to cluster them into my property. And
they didn't do that,
solve
right?
so many problems by having that.
They didn't tokenize them, right? Because I know
nobody's done it yet.
The headquarters of the Dragon Chain office, actually, one of the 3 words was dragon. Totally random. We didn't have anything to do with it, and somehow that happened. It was pretty cool.
We could end property theft, like from corrupt governments and the warlords.
Yeah, that's something that like we always say we don't have to worry about, but it's being talked about more and more. Is that because that's one of the real we talk about meat and potatoes of that. There's countries where the government changes every decade, and if you have like a farm or something that's been in your family for 10 generations, and then all of a sudden like it's the government de jour, and they're like, oh, this is ours now. I'm like, no, this is my family's farm. We've had it for and there's no way to prove it because all of your proof is based with usually the government, and if that changes, you're screwed. And then we were talking about if a Boogaloo scenario, and all the division and everything, and what I wanted to know what would happen if like a Oklahoma, Texas, whatever, we had our divorce, and Texas, let's say Texas was a country and Oklahoma was a country, like it's kind of supposed to have been a union. But like, what happens to all the treaties and like reservations? It's like, well, that was with the U.S. government. We're now the Republic of Oklahoma. Like, she was, Lisa's like, I'm sure they would just honor it. I'm like, well, it's also politicians who are usually terrible, so I don't know.
Right? Like the Federal Reserve note is only as good as the paper it's printed on.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So that,
and the custodian paper, rather.
That's all the questions, right? And I mean, on that, again, it's all history, it's all events, it's all data, but the blockchain gives you an interesting way to either store it or to separate it as something that is transferable, and like
also, as always, it helps stop the corruption. I mean, if people don't think about it, they think I bought this, it's mine, and it's over with. But you could literally be like 5 years later, and something happens, or you got a cop who's a jerk, and you're like, well, this is mine, and he took it, or and then like, well, you got a receipt. And you're like, I bought this 5 years ago at Best Buy.
Yeah.
Do I have a receipt? And it's a lot easier now, but because with everything's digital. But imagine if everything was on chain. It was like, boom, there's a scanner or something. It's like, oh yeah, it's yours.
Yeah,
belongs to your wallet. I got it.
Something was now I'm going to take a little bit of it because this kind of converts into a little bit of current events, at least.
Well, before we move to current events, I did have one last thing on the topic. So,
okay, this is still on the topic.
If you want to go first, I just want to make sure before we move.
You go first. You go first. Yeah, we won't go with that. You go first.
Oh no, you go.
I'm drinking.
Okay, fine. So I think the key thing to take away here from all of this topic is that we have had everything functionally stolen from us by third-party custodians. Anything you keep with a third-party custodian is not yours. It's absolutely not yours, and it should be, because it is. It does belong to you, but the way that the entire system is structured, anywhere there's somebody else holding it, it's already been taken from you. You are holding it in proxy of a bank, of a government agency, an escrow agent, somebody who's holding your data, like all of that shit. That is functionally already stolen from you. Blockchain gets it back, and that's something that I don't think we've been making a good point of in the coordinated effort to kill the space. And we do ourselves a disservice by not making our strongest argument.
Yeah, I think with blockchain and especially smart contracts, you kind of still can put it somewhere while still retaining ownership, which is like a big thing about what you're talking about. And once again, most of us in the West haven't had to worry about this or think about it.
Right.
But ask the people in like Cyprus, about instead of a bailout, a bail-in, and a bail-in could happen at any time in the United States, and people would lose their shit. It's instead of the government giving the bank money, they take
It's gonna
yours.
happen. Yeah.
It's going to happen, and
Right.
then
And they do it by printing it.
Well,
Well,
yeah. See, now
You
you're
can't
getting
even
into
see it
nuance.
happening.
Now you're
And
getting
guys-
nuance that the regular Joe doesn't get. The regular Joe, the bank says, "Oh yeah, you had $5,000 in your savings. Now there's one because everyone has to pitch in, and the government took that because we spent too much money and we messed things up, and they messed things up. So that's when people are like, "Whoa, we need something."
By the way, it's 1,000 negative. It's not 1,000. Anyway, no.
Yeah.
I something came up this week and what you just brought in is a perfect segue to this segue to current events, which
Perfect.
essentially I saw this TikTok video. It was on Twitter. I ended up going to TikTok and following the guy there as well. But he brought up, and I'm going to go in. It's GameStop related, right? So it was interesting. Wall Street Silver, GameStop shorts, and all that stuff. He brought up the DTCC, and I'd never heard of this before, right? And essentially, it's the place where the actual ownership of all the stocks on Wall Street are held. It's totally in the shade that you can't see what's going on behind the scenes there. But if you own stock, you have there's a term for it that was, it sounds safe, okay, but it's essentially where you hold ownership in an asset which gives you essentially dividends and the ability to interact with a broker to sell the real asset, which is held by this DTCC Corp. And there are different corps around the world to do the same
Transfer
thing.
agencies. I used to work for one.
Well, and it's so funny because he described how with, apparently all of, everybody has a gag order where they can't talk about how you can go in and register your real stock as if it was the old world. And I'm going to hold my stock certificates in my safe at home or at the office or whatever. And that there's a process that you can go through. It's not documented very well anywhere, and everyone's a gag order. So they put it in their group, and they started going in, people who owned GameStop shares, and they were registering it, and they were registering hundreds of thousands and millions a day, and they're going through this, and they were posting these, like their little purple circle that shows how much they'd registered. And as it turns out, when everything came up, it turns out that more than half of all the trades of that stock that were actually happening were not happening in the public market. They were happening behind the scenes in the fake.
Shit.
Essentially, there are more shares of that stock than there are publicly supposed to be.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what happens with silver, exactly what happens with gold, exactly what is about to happen with Bitcoin, guys. It's the same thing. They essentially say, here's the real asset, and we're going to essentially hold it, and
it's like the two-circuit system for money.
They're printing up thousands of extra shares of whatever that thing is you're trading if you have a Schwab account or if you have a broker. So it's evil. It's ridiculous. It's essentially the Federal Reserve applied to Wall Street across the board.
And when you register it, they may actually be forced to acquire it for the first time properly, because they could just be in a paper deal with somebody else who's its custodian.
And that was the game that they were trying to play with GameStop, where it was, hey, let's bankrupt them because they were all shorting GameStop. And and effectively what happened instead is like they
short is
wait
a stock
minute,
that's borrowed.
Shut it down. And they essentially called in their favors and got Robinhood to turn off the buy button.
Well, the real owner stopped it is the trick.
Yeah. So yes, and it's crazy. And
I think I watched it too. Did you share it?
I will have to find it. I need to. I have it. I have a link to it.
I remember that.
Dude, that's crazy.
Because there's that one, and there's a full hour documentary, and this.
I have sat at the screen where you click through the stuff to issue a stock certificate.
Okay. Well, and this guy wrote up an entire
DST was the one that I worked for, or a subsidiary.
He essentially said the end game is when the collapse happens, folks like JP Morgan are the ones who have the actual keys to the ownership that won't lose anything, whereas all the pensions, all the boomers are going to lose it all, and they'll just say, well, replay of the 30s, but probably far worse. So anyway,
well, I mean, and the craziest thing too is like most people never do that. Most people never redeem their stocks like that. They redeem them on paper only.
Yep.
And well, and when I say on paper, I mean on digital, right? People go on their E-Trade. They do not go through the process of emailing whatever customer support person you have to email to get that stock certificate sent to you.
Yep. It's all a game. It's all fake. It's so annoying. So, I don't know what this Bitcoin and Friends NFT. So anyway, let's see here. I think that's all that is definitely all the questions for today. So, and we're only at 26 minutes in. I think we added a lot of extra to it. So let's, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting world. Whether it happens this year, whether it happens in the next couple of years, and it's not good. But the results, the final outcomes, I think the final outcome of it all will hopefully give us a little bit of freedom.
Yeah, I think we got something good in front of us. Like ultimately, it's a matter of people realizing the systems that can free them are already here.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and play a clip, and we can come back. Current events. Is that okay with you guys? Current events and there's other goings on. There's so much going on right now. So we'll be right back.
ディズニーが最初に開発し、その後スピンアウトし、オープンソースとなったドラゴンチェーンからドラゴンチェーン商用プラットフォームおよびドラゴンチェーンインキュベーターが登場。まず資産となるデータの保護に重点を置いているドラゴンチェーンプラットフォームを見ていきましょう。サーバーレス構造を用いた拡張性高いプラットフォームはスマートコントラクトの開発者たちが Java、Python、Node、C# など使い慣れたプログラミング言語で作り込まれるようパッケージ化されています。さらに全てのスマートコントラクトが Amazon AWS とその他の機能にフルアクセスできます。次はドラゴンチェーンインキュベーターを見ていきましょう。ドラゴンチェーンインキュベーターはブロックチェーンプロジェクトのローンチに必要なプロセスを標準化しました。では次にドラゴンチェーンの市場を見ていきましょう。暗号通貨、マーケティング、法律、ソフトウェア開発、採用といったあらゆる分野のスペシャリストたちが集まるエコシステムになっています。またこの市場には開発者たちが再利用目的で収益化したビルド済みのスマートコントラクトライブラリーも含まれています。最後に紹介するのがドラゴンチェーンプラットフォームとエコシステム全体の全てのサービスにアクセスするためのトークン化されたマイクロライセンスです。ブロックチェーンビジネスマジック用に設計されています。あなたも最も安全で柔軟性が高くビジネス仕様のブロックチェーンプラットフォームとエコシステムの一員になれます。10月2日、いよいよドラゴン発売開始。
It's longer than I thought it was going to be. I only played that because I know Sean is fluent in Japanese. I wanted to ask him a couple of things, what she said, because I don't remember. So anyway,
cool.
Where do we start?
I have a Japanese sister, but I do not speak Japanese.
Really? I kind of wish I did. It'd be good.
Okay. One time I'll have to tell everybody the story about how I got lost in Japan.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. You have to be careful, right?
I think that I'm a large guy, but I'm big in Japan.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good one. Okay, so what are we going to start? I'm actually kind of glad John's not here because I was kind of worried for his, and maybe he's smart and didn't show up with what popped yesterday because it might affect his. He is in New York, and he is a comedian, and he's trying to get various jobs there and stuff like that. So I always worry that we might say something that would affect his chances, with certain people. So anyway,
I don't know. Shane Gillis is getting pretty big, and he says crazy stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really crazy stuff. But he has a way of doing it. He says something terribly racist and whatever. He goes, "Yeah, my dad said," And then he's
That's
"Oh,
horrible.
Dad did this, or Dad.
I read this. You just read the headlines or something. That's probably you probably just read tweets. You probably get away with a 4chan.
It's actually
what
hard
you-
to find anything overtly racist on Twitter or
Yeah.
on X anymore.
No,
Wow.
it's not.
Well, I mean, without
There's
without
Twitter that you can
without
find.
actively adding that to your search terms, right? Like, there's a key there. Like, we don't. I don't like to create
Yeah.
data trails of me searching for shit like that.
Especially with like just being like a YouTuber and like, you know, every like crazy people, you know, follow you on Twitter and like porn stars and whatnot. So I've seen some people's like, that's weird. Who's that guy? And then I'll click on his page and then whoa, and then the people that comment, they're all, and you can go down to where you just find some crazy stuff.
Yep. So this is multicast. It's on YouTube, of course, which throttles us quite a bit. And we know we have more views than they report for various reasons. It's broadcast on LinkedIn. It's broadcast on, and I guess on YouTube on 2 channels, on the Dragon Chain and the Den channel. It's broadcast.
And my channel. I'm streaming on mine now.
There you go. And it's also on Twitch, I think, and on X, on Twitter, on both the Real Denizens and the Dragon Chain, and it's also on Odyssey. We should try to get it onto
Rumble, yeah,
maybe as well, because I think we can
Yeah,
now.
Rumble. I think we do pretty well on Rumble. There's not a lot of consistent stuff out there. And yes, Gazoo, I have to admit,
Rumble's like old weird YouTube, right? You can find super bizarre stuff, which is fantastic.
Their
But
biggest problem
it also
is
makes
the
like
interface.
some of the streams a little cluttered.
Like if you have the app on Rumble, you can't actually see your history. You say, so I can't go back. It's like I know I watched this video. Where is it? sorry, Joe. We don't keep track of your hit. It's like I want it. I can't even look at.
Also, it's not free. You got to pay for it. That's a big thing.
Oh, what? You don't have to pay for it, do you?
Yeah.
You mean to broadcast?
Charge me $10 a month. I don't know. I thought it was a normal.
Oh,
thing.
To broadcast onto it, maybe. Yeah.
I just when I started my account, they're like it's $10 a month. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, well, I've not done that. I don't have it. Maybe if I paid, I'd be able to. Maybe it would then give me history or something. Who knows? But we need to do that. We just haven't set up a roundtable account there. So maybe we should just do that. It's 2024, right? Anyway, I've been amazed at some of the stuff, and I mentioned to you guys, I don't think there's much revealed in the new info. There's a little bit, a couple of things like,
right?
well, like Epstein was actually directly involved in the founding of the Clinton Foundation, and that I think wasn't known, which means.
Well, I think the biggest news is, and they touch on this. They've did it with the Gates for some reason. For some reason, they're not letting Gates out. But all of these
or
people,
Oprah maybe.
All these people. Well, I don't know because they haven't talked about it.
Well, it's easy though. They've left enough blanks.
Had relationships with this guy, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know he used. He wanted to get money from my do good thing, and he had money, and people told me he spent that money helping with your thing to do good." But it's after he was arrested and convicted.
Yeah.
Then you know.
Dude, he got divorced over this. We know some shit went down.
So if you know, and that's the thing, because people are like, oh, because they said it to Bill Gates, and he's like, okay, move on. They're like, yeah, but you went out to dinner and did all this stuff with him after you knew he had done this. And he was like, I just said that I wanted you to do good stuff and get money from him. And he tries to pull that the Stephen King defense, where they're like, hey, we got to get money to Ukraine. There's this thing, and it's terrible. They're like, yeah, but that guy's Nazi. He's like, well, no one's perfect. And, the dude was totally trolling Stephen King, but he was like, yeah, it didn't matter. He's a Nazi, whatever. He's not perfect. But Russia, those Putin people, oh, God, they're terrible. It's like, yeah, but, he's a Nazi. He's like, oh, well, whatever. Before you start into all that stuff, I want to talk about how I was a Russian this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Get up. And there's breaking news, man. Something I got to, it's like there's an alert. So I'm like, okay, what is a computer? And then it's on, and it's Fox News, and but it's like this on everything that I've seen. It's that we bombed something or killed somebody, but it didn't even. That was a side note. The big thing is they were Iranian-backed rebels, Iranian-backed whatever, and it literally didn't tell me. I don't know who we killed or what we blew up. Only that they were Iranian backed with Iranian drones. We killed those Houthi rebels. They like threw a rocket at us, and we sunk 5 ships. Literally, like
It's so ridiculous to me
like
that
they
people
shot
keep
at our
saying the
helicopter.
Houthi and the
So we
Iranians are
sunk
connected. They're
all
totally
of the
not.
ships and killed everyone. It's silly, but those at least they said Houthi rebels backed by Iranian forces and drones. About okay, this one this morning, I don't know who he killed. I don't know what he did, but they're just
Dude.
hating the fact that it was Iran.
But it's not them.
Well, that's
If
the
you
thing.
look
dude.
at the history of it, you know what it really
I
is?
think when they wake up in Russia, Ukraine didn't fight back. Ukraine didn't attack. It's NATO and U.S. forces in Ukraine backed.
Yeah.
You know, UN and NATO forces backed. You know, those. That's probably what they hear every day, because it's true. It's
Well, yeah, it's
a proxy
it's
war,
true.
and that's what it is. And now everything that we're hearing about. It's a proxy war. Any country that messes with it's a proxy for Iran.
Uh-huh.
You know?
They're just using words they've already taught us to tell us the next thing. I mean, come on, right? Like everything. That pipeline bombing allowed them to start using the word false flag to describe the stuff that other people are doing, right? Because it taught it to the mainstream. Everybody thought that was a victory for people who talk about false flags. No, now they can use it to talk to them. And they have a bigger budget than us for a truth engine, right? Like the thing that pisses me off about the Iran thing is everyone who has any knowledge of world history will remember that most of the Houthi supply comes from U.S. stock taken from the proper Yemeni government when what was the guy's name? It's Sanaa or Sarah or something like that. Dude, I know there's an S and 3 A's in his name. Former president took the military with him, gave it all to the Houthis. Like this is where all of the military shit that they have comes from, and we gave it to Yemen with U.S. aid. They're using U.S. fucking shit.
Oh,
we did this one again. It's just like the Mujahideen, right? Like it's another fucking Al Qaeda,
ISIS.
and they just
who created
want
ISIS?
to blame Iran for it so that we can have another Iraq war, right?
Yeah,
we can go after the terrorists and another country we want to take out at the same time. That's what they're pushing for. It's Iraq War Part 2.
You're posting stuff now, which
it just pisses me off
for doing stuff. I just sent a video in our Telegram group.
Okay.
You can download that, put it up here, and post it and play it. It's on subject with what we're talking about, and it's out there. It's real, and it's not. I'm shocked that it's not enough.
Because Telegram, I don't have Telegram installed on this on this box.
Amanda might.
So, sorry, she's not on. So
yeah. If you see a news story, by the way, that says Iranians refuse to disavow Houthi attacks, by the way, if you read into that, it's actually just them not wanting to make a public statement against it. It's not like
well, I will tell you,
not like they're taking responsibility as a proxy or anything like that.
I will tell you some of the stuff, and this kind of even mirrors because since October 7th with the what they call that, the Al-Aqsa flood or whatever, I don't know who called it that or why it's called that, but all of that stuff kicked off a lot of really interesting things, not necessarily revealed. More, it is more of a realization by people, and it's an odd thing because when and I know you guys are probably like this too. When you're online, when you have discussions with people like you guys, and when you're on 4chan or even Den or Twitter, that there are so many things, and a lot of people think, oh, it's crazy. Who knows what's real, what isn't, and you kind of end up with a little bit of a good pattern matching skill set, and some things are pretty notably obvious after a little while. The things that aren't mentioned. It's like, okay, of all these things, take the JFK assassination, look at all the theories, and look at the ones that there are no books about, that there are no specials about, that are allowed to stay online on YouTube or otherwise, and you realize that's probably a nugget of truth in that theory, because it's not the one that's being pushed by HBO, right? And so you're thinking about stuff like that, and when this stuff happens, and it happened, shortly after October 7th, when things blew up and you could see the propaganda being pushed by various very large nations, essentially, or small nations. And
we know how they do it now.
Yeah, but then you look what happened yesterday. And I tell you, like, say, even, Larry Sanger, for example, I mean, it's like he's brilliant, founder of Wikipedia, right? Super smart. And he posted it, is like, is this real? And the question was that essentially Epstein was Mossad. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you've been paying attention to anything in the past few years, that's one of the most obvious things that we can say. That who's holding it. It's not. I will tell you, Epstein was not just some math teacher in New York that somehow got enough money to buy a freaking city block and set up cameras in every room, right?
Well,
that's not really what happened.
Do you watch my show on Tuesday and then just everything you're talking about? Like I did on Tuesday. Yeah. Did you know Anthony Blinken? His dad is
the lawyer for
Maxwell was his buddy. I mean, like, there's no way they didn't hang out and come over for Christmas or whatever. These people were buddy and
weddings.
So their
other events.
So he knows Ghislaine and he knows Epstein. Even if for some weird thing he didn't know Epstein.
And
he was friends.
Does he have dual loyalties? Or does he have single loyalties to something other than our nation, right? I don't want to say too much, but yeah. It's all tied.
As far as believing, what can you believe? I watched this like it was like a kids educational thing, from like the 50s or 60s, and it basically showed me that you can't. I tried to do the thing with people where you can't see your nose. It's right in front of your face. If you move your lips, you can see your lips. If you look down, but you can't see your nose. It's right there. Your brain just says no, just erases it like Photoshop. And
we talked about this before. I think
your brain does that. It can, like, your eyes.
You can see it.
Your eyes don't really matter because your brain is what you see with, and it's hard for people to understand that. But
right, and the way it encodes is
where he did this thing, and he put it on a string, and he's like, "Here, I'm going to spin it around," but it wouldn't. It didn't. You had to look at it from above to see it spinning, because when you looked at it this way, it just went like this. And then he said, then he put a pencil, with tape inside, or a pen going across, and then you looking at it, even just look, on video. Looking at it, it still was oscillating, but the pen would spin through it, and it made no sense. It's completely, and that's what you're seeing. That's what your brain's telling you is happening, even though it's not. You still see it. So I'm like, how can? And it's not like we're training ourselves to guard against stuff like that.
Yeah, interestingly enough,
governments have been working on that since the 50s. I don't know what I can believe when I see it anymore.
Sean, interestingly enough, when people talk about AI like screwing up with certain patterns, like things that will stop a self-driving car, AIs, especially the video related ones, the modern ones that people use for things like self-driving cars, was actually the prototype version of it was based on insights obtained from studying the visual systems of fruit flies. And that visual system uses something called a grid cell, which is different from any other. It was one of the first things they could figure out how the brain was decoding it and processing it. And so these sorts of things being able to confuse people is not a surprise to me, right? Because we just have essentially a more sophisticated neural network of the same type.
Well, and that, by the way, is a lot of the, we talk a lot about divide and conquer, where they will literally set up a binary equation so that you are going to fall into one of these two groups. Super easy. It's very natural. Feels very organic. And he's like, yeah, those guys suck. Why? They have red jerseys. It's like, we have blue jerseys. Those guys suck, right? And it's even beyond that, though, because it turns into a thing where now you have to have a significant other that also works. One of you might have to have two jobs. Both of you might have to have two jobs, sometimes three jobs, just to pay your bills. You have to then pay taxes. You have to do all these things. And guess what? You don't have time to do anything except bread and circus. Okay, you got your McDonald's, so your belly's full, and you have your, and it literally is, pick your poison. It's either you're a sports ball person, or you're a Netflix person,
right,
or you're something else, right? So
they only really have to worry about programming your brain like 3 hours a day max for most people.
Right. Well, all of it's plugged in. And by the way, and I'm gonna say this, and it might be controversial, but whatever. I have not paid attention to this guy for forever. I've heard about him, watched some stuff, and there was an interview yesterday with on Alex Jones, right, and Brother Nathaniel, and it's like, oh, I've heard of him. I might want to watch that because I've heard interesting stuff about it. Right, he's just like an interesting character, and it popped up that and I was like, what did he talk about? It said he destroyed Alex Jones. And I'm like, what? And Alex Jones apparently removed the entire interview from his site. Removed it. They downloaded itself, removed the tweet that said he's gonna be on in however many minutes or whatever. And it just kind of went blank. And I'm like, okay, I need to go find this. And so some people had recorded it. It was later uploaded to Rumble, I think. I think I watched it on Twitter, on X. Again, are we calling it X or are we calling it Twitter? We need a policy.
I call it X Twitter.
I'm calling it X.
Okay, all right. So the policy is freedom, right? So anyway, so I watched it. It was super interesting. My litmus test now to know whether a politician or a speaker is full of it, are they controlled or are they ignorant of reality, is literally, what's the key? What's the most, everything else, in my opinion, everything else springs out of infinite money. That whoever holds, and he multiple times in this interview quoted Rothschild. I think it was Mayor Rothschild about the give me control of the money in a country, the creation of money in a country, and I care not who makes its laws. That is our current situation since 1913, and that's my litmus test. If any politician doesn't cite that as the key thing that we need to solve, to fix in our world, they're full of it. They either don't understand what the real problem is, or they're controlled and are trying.
I read an interesting theory that they're trying to narrow the Republican field to just Trump and Nikki Haley.
Yes.
So the idea being that they can bar him from the election, and she's the only other choice.
They are ramming her down our throat. I mean, I get texts like,
talk about a warmonger too. Jesus Christ,
horrible.
She's like the Biden from the last time.
Right,
like
it's the same person.
There's a couple good Democrats. You could have had Gabbard, for God's sake. But anyway,
no doubt she's going to take up Bill Ackman's crusade
Gabbard's control too, though,
to shut down even more speech on college campuses.
There's something now that Brandon Herrera is running for Congress in Texas. I should vote for Brandon Herrera, but and this is a bad word to use. I can never think of it when it's good to use the word maximalist or ism. They're always bad, but this constitutional maximalist, that's a litmus test for me. Constitutional maximalist.
I would maybe say that I'm more even than that. I'd be an Enlightenment maximalist.
That could be
because the
pretty broad, though.
Constitution made some compromises to authoritarianism that it didn't have to. We could always make it better.
Yeah, and that's.
I'm a
You know,
feed
I
the tree
watched-
maximalist
I watched this
myself.
clip last night from that Brendan Fraser movie about Harvard and Joe Pesci's a bum.
Man, I don't know.
Stealing Harvard, I think it's called Stealing Harvard. But Joe Pesci's a bum, but he's like, he says, I'm a Harvard bum. Fraser takes him to his class, and the professor's like super snotty. And he was talking about like usual like super liberal, the Constitution's crappy, America's crappy, people, And he gets in this argument with Pesci, and Pesci's leaving. And he's like, the thing about the Constitution is that they know that the founding fathers knew they were not perfect, and they made it so that it could be changed. You could fix things that were wrong, except for the Second Amendment, and it specifically says shall not be infringed. But all the other ones, yes, you're able to fix things that are wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's why they didn't even there's the strict versus loose constructionism stuff that happened, and that's why you had the Bill of Rights, where theoretically the Constitution itself should have been the opposite. It should have been illegal for the government to do any of the things, but they listed them anyway because they wanted to be
the problem is the Constitution has no enforcement arm. Yeah. Right? The courts are a post hoc enforcement arm. Is the problem. It allows for people to do a thing,
enforcement, right?
And then wait for the court case. Right, yeah. The government can just wait to be sued while it's doing something unconstitutional. And it's usually
I think
for a trained
parliamentary is probably an improvement on what we have, both for efficiency and flexibility. But
I think we ought to make two changes to it, big ones. One, we ought to repeal any amendment that doesn't have to do with protecting people from government. Anything in there that gives government new rights is illegitimate. So that we got to kiss goodbye the income tax.
Yes,
we got to kiss goodbye the congressional pay raises. Those sorts of things don't count, in my opinion. Yep. We wipe them out, and then we say all future edits have to be line item edits of the existing document. No further amendments that expand.
Well, I will say the Jefferson's theory about his quote about ever so often you need to spill some blood for liberty because things get messy. It's what where we are right now. Not that I'm advocating anything. I'm a watcher. I expect things. I don't. I'm not advocating certain things that I do think we're going to see though. And I think it could be done. One good improvement to our Constitution, and it should be considered for other similar constructs, is what I call the bloodless revolution amendment or clause or stipulation, where a law can't just exist forever, that it has to be repeatedly, actively renewed, or else it goes away. And
we already have that, though.
Do we? We have so many freaking laws on the books that never go away.
I think the risk is that if we make it a renewal thing, where they have to renew it, then we'll get exactly what we saw with the Patriot Act, right? Like they renew that pretty fucking reliably.
I think
no.
And I said this. I think if they vote on something that's temporary, like the Patriot Act, it can't be renewed if the same people are in office. So
I think they should have to sunset it for a year and then reenact it in the next session.
That's the thing, though.
Because you literally put your vote down. You literally put your word down and said, "This is for 2 years. This is temporary."
It should sunset first. They should at least wait a congressional session to reenact something.
The reason it matters is because so many laws exist that we don't even know what they are. The fact that the IRS still is there, even though if it came up for a vote today, it wouldn't be renewed, right? And that's the main point. Now, the fact that you can do that with one because you literally have kid rapists on video that are the legislators. Okay, I mean, there's no way around. Of course, they're going to renew it, right? It's it's literally this meme is one of the most real things ever. If you want a list, you don't need to wait for it to go public. Freaking go check the roster.
It's pretty weird.
It's crazy. You've got a guy who had sex with a Chinese spy. Not only is he still in government, but he's on He's on the Intelligence Committee.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you can't. That's like
These people are all creeps.
I can't think of a worse example. That's like it's like from a movie. Oh my God, he's on the Intelligence Committee. What's the worst
Makes
thing?
me wonder, though, about the sanctity of democracy as a concept altogether.
Democracy
I feel like maybe in order to have a society run by its people, you have to find another way to appoint representatives.
That was a big thing. John
we get
said.
So many grifters from campaigns. Like we just get grifters and scumbags. It's like a grifter. We should actually probably have a competition like this every once in a while, just so we can catch all the criminals.
Nothing's perfect, I will tell you, but the real issue is there's no finality to any of this. That people would have more honor if they saw that traitors were actually being hanged. But instead, no, we see traitors all the time, and they're like, oh, they go to prison for a while, they get pardoned.
There's no
we wouldn't know for sure,
no
given the current government, whether the people they were hanging were actually good guys or not.
It's something that's supposed to be temporary. You promise it's temporary. Yes, we're going to take away some of these, rights, but it's temporary and it's for a good cause. And just, we're all in this together. And then literally 2 years later, it's like, yeah, let's keep this. We're having a lot of fun. I mean, when you look at it was the Patriot Act or whatever something was, like it hasn't done anything but arrest like Americans. Like there's
you look at the Boston bombing.
Vernon marathon bombing. Stillwell is the one.
What year was that? What year was that? And that was it was a very telling event because two big things were very interesting to me culturally. First of all, this is Boston. This is New England. This is like this is a place that you would expect them to have some memory of what happened there a few hundred years ago. But the Boston Massacre happened there. It was core to what became the War for Independence, and they let the cops just come into their house. They let them put them on lockdown. This was before COVID, and it was like, what, in Boston of all places? It's crazy to me. And they locked down this whole area and searched for these people. The second thing. And, I had worked at the FBI, so I knew a lot of their systems. I knew how some of that stuff worked, and I knew some of the behind-the-scenes politics. And I'm like, what blows my mind? And that people don't wake up.
Ruby Ridge was the end of the modern FBI as an organization.
The thing that blew my mind was that people didn't just realize that, okay, we have this very obvious and now in front of us gigantic surveillance infrastructure, right? And what happens? What happens in this case? First of all, they knew of these people that were involved. So that decide.
All they need to do is come up with an excuse to treat part of the population as enemy combatants.
That's not even the craziest thing. Is the FBI had to publicly come out. Can you identify these people? It's like, wait a minute, you have surveillance state for what? What exactly do we have a surveillance state? If you have to come to me to ask me if I know who this dude is. Like, give me a fucking break.
Well, that's part of it, though, right? It's about scaring people. It's about letting them know it's there.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, it's just...
Gazoo Shark said cheerful Nazis. Just so you know.
Cheerful Nazis? What is it?
He said it in, I think it's Ukrainian.
I did see. Where was that? Anyway.
Yeah.
But so because you said, I really wish I knew what you said. Yeah. So I sent you I sent you those videos on Twitter, Joe.
Okay.
But it was very difficult to find you on Twitter. I wanted to let you know that.
Am I shadow banned or something?
I couldn't find you anywhere. I went to I went to Dragon Chain. And I am to look at people we follow together. I typed in your name, didn't come up.
Okay. Let me see what I can find.
Well, I will. So, I have these videos here. I could put them up. I will have to probably share with audio, which might kill me if I drop out. I'll come back. You guys just keep going on. Okay. Which one do you want me to show first?
We need to show the one TikTok one. The other one, I forget what. I think it's just Biden admitting to a manipulation of the electoral process.
I will do that. Let me see if I can do this real quick. If I can bring it up, Twitter. without showing everything in my DMs, right?
Just
One
could show
second
on.
here.
Well, it'll probably
It's
go
so
big
annoying.
screen when you play it.
It goes to full freaking screen. I can't pull it up to the window. This is so dumb. Wait a minute. I can pull it up. Let me see if I can share it from here. Man, I tell you what, Twitter, X, whatever the hell, for all of what they're doing, so freaking annoying. Yeah, I can't share it as a tab. Stupido. So stupid.
Well, they're trying to stop people from data scraping, right?
Yeah.
Hang on, I got it frozen again, so I'm gonna jump back on. I'll be right back.
All right. I'm gonna try here, Sean. 1 second. Let's see here. Nope. Like I can share all my DMs. I could let people see what people are saying to me, but I don't want to do that.
So you just share my DM?
Oh wait, I got it. I found a way to do it here. I can't share it with audio. Crap, this is bad.
We'll try it. Maybe it will.
No, it won't. It won't share it with audio.
Yeah, I don't know how to share stuff with audio either. Lisa has to do it.
Well, you can share it in a tab, but I can't share that in a tab unless I want to show all my DMs. So maybe I can find. I apologize, guys. This is so stupid. God, this is so annoying. Here, maybe if I shrink the screen. Here, if you don't mind. Well, you said something maybe sensitive right before that in the DM. So I'm not confident or not.
No,
oh wait,
this one. I think we.
He said, maybe I'm going to shrink it. Maybe I can do it this way. Okay, here we go. It will be kind of small, and it'll be kind of ugly. So apologies to everyone, but at least I'm not exposing anything. And man, a lot of talk about nothing. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to share it with audio. Okay, and now I'm going to throw it up here. And I'm not exposing what you said before that about the nukes.
All
right. So here we go. Already. Hopefully, tell me if you can't hear it, and I'll stop. All right.
Gotta see this. Yeah. You're good. Let me whisper a secret. You're one sexy kid. Don't tell mommy what I told you. You got it? Mm-hmm. I'm recording. Oh, you're recording. That's so me. And this guy is running the country?
Did you hear what he said?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. I didn't bring Greg.
Oh, hey.
I did not bring you back. Sorry about that. Did you hear that?
If you could turn it up a little bit. Can you turn it up?
What did he say?
This is a girl. So this girl.
I'm gonna run it again.
A selfie. So he leans in to do a selfie, but she's recording. And hear what he says.
Something.
Gotta see this. Yeah. You're good. Let me whisper a secret. You're one sexy kid.
Ew.
Don't tell mommy what I told you.
Ew.
How's that not enough? You know, Dan Quayle.
That's not a deep fake, is it?
No, this is old.
No,
this is
holy
old.
Shit.
So Dan Quayle misspelled the word potato, and nothing mattered to the press or anyone else.
Yeah. Well, that begs a good question, actually. What are they distracting us from with this timed release?
He was a moron. It's like he could come out with like all his degrees. It was like, no, you're a moron. You couldn't spell potato. You put an E on it. And that's it. And this dude said that. First off, he whispered to the girl, "You're one sexy kid." Okay.
Ew.
But when he backed away, everyone heard him say, "Don't tell mommy I said that." Everyone should be questioning, what did you just say to that kid? You know what I mean? And it's I don't get it.
There's enough other evidence where he pinched that one girl nipple when she's a little girl, and they asked her. It's like, yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Honestly,
let's be honest.
But this is it's so blatant. It's so.
It seems
not
like
funny.
political office attracts such
around that. The word "sexy" and "kid" don't ever go together. It's why?
Yeah, it's right up there with like as far as things you should never say, it's right there with like the and Jews.
There's nothing. There's nothing any
What'd you say?
MSNBC or whoever anyone could do to defend that. You know, they have to be like, well, like even Donald Trump's, grab her in the pussy. It's him with another dude in private. You could say
Right,
a lot.
and they're talking about like adult women.
It's still wrong, but it's
at least they're talking about adult women. It's slightly better.
Yeah, there's nothing that you could do to defend this. You can defend it and be like, "Hey, man, dudes are assholes. This is how dudes talk. He's an asshole. That's what Fine, it's wrong, but there's nothing."
I'm probably gonna get clipped later for saying that, but
I don't know. I don't know. It's just so ridiculous. Watch that Brother Nathaniel interview and just tell me what you think.
It's pretty screwy,
either in private or next week or whatever makes sense, because there's a lot of stuff in there that is like, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. A lot of stuff I did not know because I don't know some of those.
The thing that I really think is interesting here is, and probably Brett's discussing about all this, is note the fact that, like, how long did they know this release was coming? How long did they know they were going to have to release it?
A while, right?
A while, right? So if you were an evil empire, you'd probably have like teams of people potentially specifically hired for the task, right? Of coming up with an approach for what things we want to say while this is distracting everybody.
Bene Gesserit.
Right. What things do we want to do while we're distracting everybody with this? So I think now is a particularly interesting time to look around outside of this story and see what's going on. To see what people are doing and saying in power, because now is probably a time that they, if they're being rationally evil, right, as we know they are probably doing other things that they thought this would not be a bad time to do, right? Like they knew this was coming, they knew they're gonna have to do it. They set the date. What else did they do?
I believe he actually admitted to this. And this is like I think this was 2015 or 16 that was out. But I know that he did admit to it. But there was it was explained away like, oh, he's old, and that's how a different time they talk. It's like a compliment.
He's just Uncle Joe. Yeah, like so stupid. Whatever.
It was they like it was like a quick oh, this is not what you think. You're the pervert for thinking that. It was all very very innocent. And then it was over.
Yeah, well, and you can watch the freaking the photo takes of all of the whenever they introduced new members of Congress when he was VP and he went up there with all, and you see how he treated the kids. It's like,
I wonder how many of them were hair sniffers. The
creepiest thing I saw was just a circuit, closed circuit TV security camera, and it was. He was up there. There was a photo op thing, and it was the Secretary of Defense or whoever. He was vice president, and he had his granddaughter. And Joe Biden came up next to him, behind the granddaughter, and was going to put his hand on his shoulder. And the dude hid his hand away, and pushed him, and then moved his granddaughter in front of him. And it was all like not for the camera. It was like they know. That's just so creepy.
Yep. And I say, someone asked, how many of our legislators or government are controlled, and I'm like, you have to assume it's 100%, or else the ones that aren't would be wanting to push out the list, right?
Yeah. Well, I've always said that once you get to above the state level, you have to have compromise in some way to get to that level. They don't let you to the big show unless, you can see there's no reason for the DNC to be here. After what they did to Bernie, it should have been like, oh, this is a joke. It's not real.
Right. Well, and what they're obviously
that are a member of this wanted
Assange.
this person, and a couple of people in a back room decided, no, we can't have what we want. So that should be the end of that group. And it wasn't. And then they basically did it again the next time. So it shouldn't be around.
Well, I mean, and it also, I think it's interesting too, because it marks the beginning of the use of, information warfare tools against regular people. If you want to know when they field tested all of the the things that they're using to trick people and censor people and get them to go along with their own subjugation right now, it was in that Democratic primary, right? Like that was when they really tested because I personally thought that that had they elected Yang, we would have had an interesting situation. It would have been a little different. And that kind of difference was obviously shoved out, right? Like if you want to watch a system shove out a guy, they started working on him right away.
Yeah. I'm wondering what they have in store for Beck wanting to remove the FBI and everything else. I wonder what some of the other things that are about to happen. And and by the way, that Brother Nathaniel video brings up a couple of points with Trump, even that they're not. He specifically said they're not afraid of Trump. They control Trump. All of his properties are, they have a handle on him. What they fear are the people who follow Trump or his followers, his fans, whatever. And my interest is in the loss of control, because to me it appears that they essentially let Trump come in order to capture all of his followers and essentially placate them, keep them from doing crazy stuff. And I think they've lost it, because I think even if Trump comes in, if Trump doesn't come in, when that is, that those people are far more awake than they would have ever been. And the things that really matter, we go to the Federal Reserve, we go to the actual money, we go to all of the deeper levels of the infrastructure. That stuff's at risk, because once people realize that it's a game and we might as well be ruled by aliens, that's when everything changes. So,
well, I mean, and there's also like the second term thing, right? Like presidents in their second terms stop giving a fuck about the establishment and what it thinks. It's sort of like a natural, like the pressure comes off. It is the very end of the line for political aspirations. They know they're about to retire to a career of lucrative public speaking roles, right? Like they're going to walk away from this thing a winner by the time they pass that mark.
That's still the narrative to control the Trump people, because if you look at the end of his, so he
the
lost,
question is,
right?
will he do that?
Or, well, that's the thing though. What I would expect Trump to do is to pretend like he's going to actually build the wall this time. It's like, well, why did you last time? To pretend like he's actually going to pardon Assange and Snowden. It was like, why didn't you already do that?
I don't think he's going to say anything about that.
But that's the thing. He will get asked, I'm sure. And
yeah, but he's still I think he's still afraid of whatever threat they level against him. You have to
wonder why. Yeah, people say, "Oh, he was threatened." I'm like, well, then what?
In all likelihood,
what was it worth having him in office if he was too scared to do the things that we all? You could go right to the lowest IQ. I'm going to say IQ. You could go to the people who are the most. How do I say this? You could go to the simplest person in all of the country and say, should we have pardoned Assange? And it's like, I think you hit a 80% or higher number from anybody who isn't just totally programmed. And
right. Well, I mean, or anybody who isn't totally retarded. Even if you don't like Assange, if you don't like Assange, there's a good chance you like the New York Times. And if you like the New York Times, you should go against the prosecution of Assange.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
ultimately, there's no interest to be had for anybody on either side here.
In which case, what was the purpose of having the disruptor Trump in there? He wasn't really a disruptor; he was controlled.
No, he was better than average.
There were no wars.
Was he? I don't know.
There weren't new wars.
There were no new wars, and he brought peace to the Middle East.
He touched on one of my hobby horses, man. He did liberate shower heads. He liberated shower heads and dishwashers for an entire production generation.
Okay. So it's like, okay, cool. So we have better that, and we have something that we should expect.
Fast mode is on your dishwasher, thanks to him.
So okay, you beat me on that. He was worth having him in because he didn't get us into wars. Okay. Like it should
Didn't
be.
get us into
assumed
wars
that-
and gave us back high flow shower heads
And
for a while. For a
By the
little
way, I
longer.
mean, I voted for
He's
him.
funny. He
and,
was funny.
And here's the other thing: I don't know that
He
I'm going
pissed
to
them
vote
off
this
too,
year.
man. It was worth it.
I don't know if I'm going to vote if there's an election. Let's just pretend like we're not going to have an EMP or some freaking new gingivitis outbreak or some other crazy shit. Let's pretend like there is going to be an election. Are you guys going to vote?
Gingivitis.
You guys going to vote?
Oh, I'm not voting. I don't.
Sure, I'm nostalgic.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to vote. This is the first time I've actually bring up the question. Like, I've always just assumed I'm going to vote.
The reason I don't vote, and I'm sure everybody on here who's regular has heard me say this, is because it legitimizes the regime that we live under. I refuse to acknowledge it, and I refuse to give it my consent. I might as well just sign a social contract every time I drop a ballot in a box. I'm not doing it.
Well, when you argue with someone, and you're 100% right, and then you say, well, what about this? And that's it. You won the argument. When they just look at you and like, well, I don't know. That means I'm not going to change my mind. Yeah, I'm wrong, but I'm not going to admit it. I don't care about this. I can be right if I ignore this thing you just said. And that's how, you can argue whether the election was stolen, whether it wasn't stolen, but you can't argue with the fact that there are 150 million registered voters and there were 180 million votes. That's something that should be looked at. And that's like, well, that's
obviously it's fake.
You can't argue. That's like basic math. And nobody wants to talk about that. No one will admit that the election was messed up, which was the whole beginning of everything. Beginning of J6.
I mean, they were pointing military-grade info weapons at us the whole time.
Everyone is like, hey, this is weird and messed up. Hold on. Let's look at it. See, the narrative's been changed, but we're all there. It's not like it was, 50 years ago. We have to think about it, or we weren't born, we were there. It was like, hold on, stuff got shut down, and this is just highly irregular. Let's look at it. And they're like, no.
Just
how America works. We got to do it.
Dude,
it's Tuesday.
They weren't just pointing the weapons grade information weapons at us, like the military grade information weapons at us. They were firing them. They were deploying things that they deployed against enemies to make them believe things that were advantageous to the military invaders. And they were pointing them at us and pulling the damn triggers as fast as they could.
Why were they allowed to do that?
Why were they allowed to do that? They technically weren't allowed to do that.
No, they were.
It was illegal.
It wasn't illegal.
Oh, it was totally. I mean, it's illegal as I see it.
When did it become possible for the United States government to use propaganda on its own people?
2012.
2012. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a bill passed that basically stripped away the line between outward-facing propaganda and inward. It was considered a matter of practicality because they couldn't propagandize the internet and carve out targeting the United States, they said. Except they could, because all of our adversaries at the time used languages other than English, and yet publishing in American English and targeting us with ads by selecting that in the ad buyer, right? Like gathering our data, finding out what we're thinking. They just did that globally because they didn't want to carve us out of it. And they didn't want to carve us out of it, not because it was too hard, which they will claim, but because it was too easy to get away with. They didn't have anybody standing in their way. Why not weaponize against us? There are people like the cypherpunks who do things like give everybody PGP encryption in the 1990s, or that make fools of the government by exposing leaks that embarrass the shit out of them, or expose their war crimes. Right? The internet made that possible, and it wasn't until after Trump that they got serious about fighting back. But that election was, I mean, the digital equivalent of a fucking carpet bombing every day. They were pulling triggers on military operations against our own people. And that is why 2020 was not a legitimate election. Period.
Yep. Tulsi Gabbard that's where she works in the military. is that warfare department. But she is very cute.
Any other military intervenes in their own election, they don't call those legitimate elections.
Yeah. Everything's messed up.
Information warfare, whatever.
You'd have to look at. I think the assumption should generally be that anything that's announced by the government is a lie. I mean, all the UFO stuff coming out now. There's a reason they're pushing that when they weren't before. I don't know what it is, but there's something. And you look at Las Vegas. What the hell happened in Las Vegas? It's the greatest mass murder in American history, with no motive, and it's like it's all swept under the rug. Whatever, right? What the hell was that? I don't know, right? And that's why we go back to blockchain. That's why, talking about stolen materials. What about the U.S. treasure blood stolen from us? It would be great if all this stuff was on chain. It'd be great if everything behind the scenes. Look, you can still, by the way, maintain security. If you're talking about national security, I always say, you can't do this because of national security. You could do some very transparent things and have deterministic release of them. Whatever the sanctioned time frame is, after the war is over, all this material goes out there. You better not do anything bad. You better not do things that are evil, because it's going to get out there, right? And you can look at what's been actually published about MK Ultra, or about any of the various events that have happened throughout history. They're holding the freaking JFK files. That's the other thing. Trump was supposed to release them. Like he didn't, and Biden did. It's like it's so freaking. Why not? It's like, and people say, because the CIA is involved. Well, the CIA is involved, but I guarantee there's some other involvements that they're wanting to cover more. So crap like that's ridiculous. If it were on chain, and by the way, I'm an historian. I love history, and I would love to have this technology used for the betterment of history. The things that we can't know, like you could read Herodotus, the history of some of the original Greek histories, but it was written way after the fact. It was still from word of mouth after the fact, written down by someone who at least has some level of reputation for being honest. But there's tons of things that most historians now know were either mapped from the Spartans to the Athenians, where really it was the Spartans did this, and various things where they, as always happens in history, they make it look like the losing side had a much bigger advantage in numbers or other than they really did, and you don't have any way to know. We now have this technology that battles and legislative information and everything about our government should have some level of transparency, and whether it's time
absolutely
or not,
you should know if you get taxed, literally exactly where that dollar gets spent.
Yep.
Right.
And that's a way of thinking that has changed so much. You know what I mean? Especially on your local level, like police body cams, anything with the police. You don't own any of it. None of it's yours.
Yeah.
It's local tax money. To go in and say, hey, I would want to see this video. Why this video released? Oh, we don't think it should be really. It's like, no, it's not yours. Nothing's yours. The bathroom here, everything here is not yours. It's all it's the most base level stuff, and people just accept that crap. And it's mind blowing. It used to be like, no, I paid for that.
Well, and the long view of this too is like the adversaries of the kind of liberty we're talking about getting back here for the first time in more than 100 years have been thinking about how to combat it and stop it for more than 100 years. Anytime the smartest people in a society start to spread information effectively to the masses, the ones who are on the outside, the people who are born with natural merit, right? They'll figure something out and they'll share it.
Yep. And that's what
and
I
right
think
now
we
the
should
whole
be-
blockchain space is just stuff with people who are like, they get it, and now the task is to get it to everybody.
Yeah, the problem is it's the blockchain world is not. I wouldn't say it's stuffed with those people. It's stuffed with people who could do that and do get it, but aren't. They're chasing numbers.
Keep in mind,
and JPEGs.
The adversary is aware, right? Like they're stuffing. They're still firing the military grade information weapons at our space.
Yeah, but we're ill prepared for it because we've been chasing numbers. That's the problem. And I mentioned this on a phone call the other day that look, this is a space full of people who are cypherpunk. We should be using these as tools to free ourselves and others, right? That's what we should be doing. And
there's been a timidity about that.
Yes, and the fact, but this is a simple thing. This isn't even something that you even have to have much courage to do. It's just you have to have a little bit of drive to do it, which is, what's the biggest problem in crypto as seen by the outside world? It's the fact that there's so many scams and shit, right? And it is a problem, and it is not the sole problem, and it's probably it's very much overinflated.
And it's certainly not the biggest problem right now. It's sort of like focusing on graffiti on street signs when
we know it's not the biggest
mass
problem,
murder
by
a state entity is going
on. But at the same time, Greg, a normal person who says, "Hey, this is an interesting thing, and I want to help out because this is my role in society," they come in here and they get scammed for their life savings. It's a big problem,
right?
Okay?
And
now here's the thing. Here's the thing. It's already solvable. We did it.
Yeah, it is.
2016. All you have to do.
My point is simply that the lure that they use with that wedge issue is to get us to talk about it instead of the good things, the reasons
why.
Okay,
I would agree with you, Greg. If getting us to talk about it would have involved actually fucking doing the obvious solution. He's like, you have cypherpunks who are not, as the head of their project, saying, if I announce something, guess what? I'm going to sign it with this fucking public key or this address. That's all it takes. You don't even have to have a system to do that. You already have all the tools. But why the fuck aren't they doing it? Are they just lazy?
Right.
Are they just stupid? Are they not really cypherpunks?
Well, people need to be insisting too, though, that the services they use facilitate that information being spread too once it's there. Right? If there were an infrastructure for sharing that,
shouldn't that have been something that crypto should have built instead of all?
Well, yeah, someone needs to build this. It's a good idea.
Well, I mean, Dragon Chain has done it. We still retain that. We've saved nobody. Even in 2016, when it was still open source, we had tons of people come into Slack and post like, "Hey, under my name with my avatar, hey, we're selling these tokens." Everywhere else that worked. Everywhere else they'd make 75 to 200 grand every time they did it. Right. On Dragon Chain,
but if I owned a bot army and the free license to use it, I would be telling people things in crypto, pretending to be other crypto people, that gets them arguing amongst themselves about things that they're wrong with the ecosystem. Like that would be my strategy if I wanted to make sure that people weren't making their best argument.
I think talking about the problems in our industry is probably needed because
but it shouldn't overshadow the benefits it can provide society.
What benefits? What benefits have been provided to society by everything going on in
self-custody of wealth? Self-custody of wealth.
Okay.
The ability to resist any forcible taking of it.
Okay, except Greg, you say self-custody wealth. I agree totally. That is probably one of the most amazing, obvious,
it's under attack right
clear.
Now.
It's what?
It's under attack right now.
As our privacy legally, but but legally doesn't matter. This is people.
Well, lawfare,
I could do this anonymously, right? I don't, by the way. Anybody listening to me? But the fact is, everything in our industry is geared away from self-custody.
Right, but my point is the way you fight against the lawfare.
Celsius, you look at what happened with FTX. That's all a failure of the entire core principle.
The way you fight against lawfare, though, is to change public opinion. And to change public opinion, we got to start talking about why they need us, not why they ought to be fearful of us.
Well, but that's the thing, though. If you're chasing the numbers and everybody's making all the money by going to FTX and staking stuff and churning new money, and Celsius saying, we want you to put your stuff in this under our custodianship so they could control it, right? So they could essentially steal it. And so you're like looking everything that's happened in crypto, even as a crypto insider, I would say was bullshit. That all these big guys and everybody tied to it were chasing a number so much. It's like it's adoption. FT.
But that wasn't crypto.
Sam Bankman-Fried is a genius. I can't tell you how many times
that wasn't crypto. That was derivatives.
Politely behind the scenes would ask people who either had met him, knew people there, who people who were trying to get us involved with FTX as Dragon Chain back in the day. I'm like, well, I was always kind of weirded out that he kind of came out of nowhere. Who is this dude? I don't see him as a genius.
He was
and I don't care about
made.
Right.
He was a sacrificial animal.
Everyone would tell me. They were apologists. They would tell me, oh, he's a genius. He's a genius who made a bunch of money with arbitrage.
Celsius, I think, was a different
thing. A hapless dipshit that they
Celsius was like it was to fight the banks. And it's like Crypto.com has done the same thing, but they've come out on top. Celsius was like, hey, you're average Joe, you're chasing that low number, with your CDs and whatnot. Same concept, same stuff, but bigger numbers. I think it was like with FTX, complete scam. Celsius, when you say they were wanting to steal it, I think that's a little more on the no. I don't think it was quite that bad. I think FTX was evil from the start. Fine.
I don't know.
They were never crypto.
I do think
we should not own
money.
I think Celsius was more of the bad idea of, hey, we're going to do things the way the legacy people have done it.
It's the same bullshit.
The same bullshit. Yeah, we do the same bullshit, but better.
But you look what they did, though. You look at what they did. They pulled money out of that. They told people they wanted to put. I interviewed him. He said we want people to put money in this custodianship, and so they set it up to do that. They were printing money over here and churning it this way so they could pretend like it was really there. It's the same thing that real banks do.
Right, it's derivatives. Yeah. They were trading derivatives. It was shadow banking. Bullshit. It's all it was. And to me,
that's what FTX was too.
Well, no, to me, that's to claim that FTX was somehow a crypto company and that the problem here is with crypto. You have to go back and look at the housing crisis and wonder why we didn't get tougher building codes on houses after the home builders clearly
Greg,
fucked up.
The problem is you're talking. You already said if you want to change legislation, we have to change it.
Right.
The problem was it was seen as crypto because so many crypto
that doesn't mean we should just
into it.
Let the point stand. Repetition may trick people into thinking they're looking at truth, but that doesn't mean we should let that tactic just go. Right. If we want the narrative to be won, we have to shift it to our own initiative. We have to be saying the positive thing.
We need to be.
They have to be.
A little more
they have to be responding to
cognizant.
us. If you're explaining and losing in politics.
We need to be a little more cognizant when something and a little more courageous and honorable when something is bullshit to call it out as bullshit.
Right. We should address it and
industry.
hit it right back to the positive narrative, just like the establishment does.
Just like I could say, if you look at who's the CEO the exchange with the squid or the I'm totally Kraken, thank you. They specifically call out, it's like, don't leave your crypto on the exchange. That is beautiful, right? That's the right way to be. That's honorable. It's truthful. It's real. It honors the actual use, the actual, one of the core features of crypto. I mean, I remember when I first Bitcoin I bought, and I've told you guys this before. I even interacted with Karpelis, or however you pronounce it, on Mt. Gox because something didn't go through once. I mean, he was the support guy on the other end. I had no idea who he was until everything happened. But when I bought Bitcoin, that was one of the things that I described to people and I showed people, and I marveled at myself that I bought this thing, and what did I do? I didn't leave it there. I didn't leave it there to trade. I didn't leave it there as like, oh, well, I bought it. I own it. I brought it back to my own freaking little laptop. And like, it's amazing because I control it here. And it blew my mind that you had literally the president of the Bitcoin Foundation having lost hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin on the Mt. Gox exchange. It's like, how the fuck is this guy the president of the Bitcoin Foundation? He's leaving shit on the exchange. And that is our world. And yes, it's imperfect, and I understand.
Right.
Can't ask for perfection, but we
Point
need to be
being-
able to call it out. And say,
Right, but point being though, like what Vernon was saying, right? The other side's not going to back down. The way they fight, they're an information warfare based approach, right? Like they're coming at us to make people not trust us, in an effort to get people from not adopting the trustless thing that we use to sometimes build untrusted things. It's about discerning the difference between the underlying tech and the people that sometimes build bullshit on it.
And that is why the tech is the most important thing. You know, you might describe
right, but they want to smear them together, and we're not doing a very good job of differentiating the two.
I agree, and that's because we're going right along with chasing numbers and JPEGs. That
right. Well, we are also playing along with stringing up Sam Bankman-Fried instead of trying to shift the conversation away from that to the benefits that it can provide in the face of of some of the things that
I don't know. I
like
think
about
that's
what the state's doing.
I would disagree there because stringing up Sam Bankman-Fried, or at least calling attention to him,
but it's time to move on.
How integrated he is. Is it time to move on? It shows how integrated.
Should we let them talk about it for the whole of election season?
Yeah.
Right. Like
it's like if it's applicable, I would say yeah.
I think we should.
They're going to let him off
because I think we should try to make them answer back against the positives too. That way, people hear them.
What's that?
Like if people don't answer back against the positives, if they're not forced to answer back against the positives as they're campaigning, no one will ever hear anything good about crypto during the whole election.
I don't think that even matters. I mean, people don't trust what they're being told by the government. I mean, that's
but the way we fight lawfare, right, is to fight back. We need someone like Tybee or Greenwald talking about us.
Greenwald already does, right? I mean, he's he doesn't posted multiple things about Fried,
right? But they've maintained
he's shown corruption and the fact that
view of ambivalence towards crypto.
But that's a fine point, and it's a fine point from an insider that's saying, "Well, actually, it's not crypto," and it's like nobody's going to give a shit that because a typical
they won't give a shit if they're going to try to make them
isn't going to know the difference anyway. We need to point out that these corrupt people have done these things, and by the way, that wasn't really crypto. That was just junior banking bullshit that happened to involve crypto tokens.
Right, and then maybe we pivot to talking about the problem with junior banking bullshit that crypto solves. Right.
True, that's true. I totally agree there. But it's just I don't know. The whole thing though is that if we're doing what crypto is capable of, none of those legalisms should matter, right? Because that's the whole point of it. It's like no, I control this. This is mine. You can't get it, right? You can put a gun to my head and if I remember a phrase or something.
And as it stands, I think the people that are attacking it most overtly lawfare wise, like the Liz Warren Army thing, that's a purely cynical demographic ploy. We shift the numbers on that. Positions that are overtly anti-crypto become untenable.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the reality of the matter is me as an insider. I've been in Bitcoin since 2010, right? I did not treat it as an investment because I'm not a banker, right? I treat it like an engineer. I did well off on a few different things, awesome, but I'm almost entirely, except for scraps here and there, divested from all of crypto. I don't trust what I'm seeing. It is too integrated into Wall Street. I think and I do expect a collapse. When people DM me, it's like, what should I buy, Joe? And I'm like, well, if I were you, if you have a family, make sure you have dried food. Make sure you have a garden. Make sure you have bullets. Make sure you have some form of precious metal.
Then maybe start buying some Bitcoin.
Maybe, I don't know. I think Bitcoin's going to fall right along with everything else because it's going to be easier to get out of than everything else. because it's you can do it directly and in multiple places in and outside the U.S. I think
No,
it's
it'll
gonna
still
get
be on,
emptied.
and it will still retain some value. It's not
Maybe,
going straight
yeah.
to zero.
It totally well, and this is without even hitting the craziest side of the things, which if and when Bitcoin in particular gets important enough, if because I was always wondering right before the Ukrainian conflict, we're pretty certain that Putin bought a lot of gold. And I say Putin, I say the Russians. A lot of those countries bought a lot of gold, knowing what shit was coming. And I think we're trying to take some of the frozen assets and give them to Ukraine and all that shit, right? So they did that. I have often wondered, why didn't they just go straight into Bitcoin and say, screw you guys, here's something that already exists. We're just and the reason is the security, the possibilities. And I've said this multiple times, and I still think it's the truth. I don't think that things would have happened the way they did if there wasn't a backdoor in it, and a craze, not something something like what we've seen in recent years when the unbreakable things or things that we didn't even know were possible were shown to be possible in order to get some Iranian issue to end or something else. So the deep stuff. I think that exists within Bitcoin. Is like the way some of the crypto is. It's not knowable until it happens, and hopefully it doesn't happen. But I don't think it will happen unless you have a nation state level reserves in Bitcoin. At which point they could kill a nation state with it. I think that's why it's there. But
it's an unprovable point of risk, But I think the risk in front of us, facing people with the dollar right now, is at the very least much greater. And there's always been risk with physical things that you can hold of confiscation. Yeah. Right. Yep. That's the trade-off you make. Crypto can't be forcibly taken from you as we understand it, unless the system has a backdoor.
Yeah. Well, or
the system,
they can physically go to you and get your crypto. You'll have it backed up somewhere, whether it's in your head or on a piece of paper. They could do the same thing.
It's a speculative risk, but there are examples of physical taking.
That's what I'm saying. Physical. The same risks you have with holding gold, 99% of people in the world are going to have with owning crypto, because they're going to have their 12 or 24 words in a safe somewhere, or in their head, or in some other way, and they can come physically and grab that just as well as they could.
Well, I mean, unless you're particularly smart about how you keep them.
Yeah, how many people do you hold it all in your brain wallet? Because
I don't hold it in my brain. Brain wallets are actually dangerous.
I know it. I
have a system that I can't really tell all the much about.
Yeah, but if I came to you,
they won't be decodable.
If I came to you and I put a gun to your head or to the head of someone you dearly loved, I'm gonna get your crypto, and you hide some of it. That's just all good.
We're done on principle.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Somebody put a gun to somebody I loved head, and
like you could have principle for yourself, but not like your kids.
Yeah, you can kill me. There are. I tell you what,
facetious, but
they're going to crucify me in the end, and they're not even going to crucify me because I'm a threat to the dollar. Because I'm not. I'm a threat to other things.
You're a threat to the broader notion of applications in space. They would prefer this technology not disintermediate other sectors besides finance.
Yep. And it's gonna happen, even if I have to move the freaking company out of this godforsaken, lawless zone in the world. The beast. By the way, I say current events, and we're like a quarter hour left. Current events. The craziest thing is I want to see if you guys think this, but my political thoughts in the past decade, let alone 20 years, have moved so radically. Even the past couple of years, where I even understand capitalism and communism is false. It's not even real. It's all fake. And I'm just kind of blown away that now I didn't expect to have to draw back on more of the metaphysical or philosophical things when I'm talking about running a business. But essentially I'm attacked. But I'm going to tell you, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, because I used to be look, whether or not you're a Christian, Christ generally says very good things. And it's very interesting. If you look at it even philosophically, some of the things he says are profound and worth watching. Just like if you're reading Seneca, or just like if you're reading, Aurelius, or some other philosopher from ancient times. They're super interesting things and worthwhile in your life to know. I never thought that I would be posting on Twitter freaking exorcism prayers, right? But I feel like I have to do that. I have to, when I close my gate in the night, I was like, I have to say a prayer. It's like, protect me from evil. Whoever the hell's listening to me, protect me from evil, because I know that fuckers are after me. It's horrible. Anyway, so I'm crazy now, but crypto's led me there, and/or the U.S. government.
You talk about communism and capitalism. I think it's interesting the hypocrisy that we have as capitalists, because everyone says communism doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. Communism is the most beautiful, nice, loving idea of a government that there is. It just doesn't work.
But it's really not, though, right? Like,
It's
a way of saying, like,
it's
you're obligated to be. It's the enslavement of man to man.
No, because you're entering into it's a commune, and like old hippie artists still live that way. They all paint their stuff and they sell it in their little stores side of the road.
But it only works if nobody has to carry anybody else.
Everybody has a wonderful life. Everything is beautiful and loving. And then when you look at the ills of capitalism, which this generation, everyone's like capitalism bad, capitalism. I'm like, well, that's not capitalism. And like, well,
that's the same thing they say about communism. That's why I say it's not.
Capitalism is the right word. It's really more free markets.
Yeah, that's and you need to, because capitalism is not capitalism. It's crony capitalism. It died a long time ago. Trump did one of the most socialist, communist things that ever was done. He bailed out the entire airline industry, and everyone's like, "Yeah, okay."
Oh God, yeah.
No, that's not.
And that didn't help them either. That made them all worse.
They were assholes about it, because people were like, "I don't know," and the airlines were like, "Whatever, do it, don't do it, we don't give a shit."
Right. I mean, and they did it using printed money, which came directly out of our pockets, and we didn't feel it.
Everything flows from that. You couldn't have war in the Middle East. You couldn't have Hollywood degeneracy being pushed all around the world. You wouldn't have all the hatred for the U.S. and Americans all around the world if it weren't for Hollywood.
You couldn't have
none of it would be possible
being influenced by other states if you didn't.
Right. Well, I mean,
it's
you might even call
the CIA having people. It's like, oh, we have teachers on our staff. We have, they essentially saying there's spooks everywhere. It's like, no shit. You have unlimited money. Of course, there's spooks everywhere. Like, all of the media is covered by you. It's like you guys created ISIS, or you and other people created it's like all that shit's fake. They have to have terror. We have to keep these people afraid so that we can keep pushing this bullshit on them. You can't do that if you don't have unlimited money. And guess what? You look at what's happening right now in Gaza, and it's like, man, I'm kind of blown away, but so many people are calling out the bullshit. And, there's nothing about anti-Semitism or anything else. It's like the state of Israel is doing some nasty shit right now.
I think it's weird how that people aren't using those words anymore. They're literally using the word Zionist.
Yeah.
To where that was like, you didn't
well,
say
Congress passed a law that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Right? That's not a law.
Right.
Whatever the hell they call it.
Yeah. And there was like some comedians that. Like,
well, it was the whole setup for the Harvard thing.
It's very odd. Right. Very odd.
They needed it in order to stand on that in the hearing.
Props to Massachusetts for bringing up Sealand. That's
Sealand.
I do love Sealand.
Yeah, I wish that were a big. Sealand needs. By the way, if I were a Native American citizen or resident or whatever else, I would be pushing the elders to get nuclear technology. And because I imagine it's like, in the very least, it'd be a super interesting sci-fi plot to have a new nuclear power developing inside.
I feel like it'd slide into kitsch and sort of like be very gauche very quickly.
Yeah, and more so, really, if they don't have the authority they should, because all that land was taken from them, and it's like, oh, here's some other land. It's desert. It's like, oh wait, that desert has oil under. Oh, here's some different land. In the very least, they should be able to create like a Kuala Lumpur or some some region that you could operate without taxes, or at least I'm going to pay the taxes to them, and they're going to get rich. It's like, no, you can have casinos. You can have casinos. You can't do these other things. I'm like, come on, it's so ridiculous. That's a huge opportunity, I think, if they could have some independence movement where they essentially would be creating wealth.
It's an interesting point.
Amazing.
When it comes to the way that crypto has been treated versus online gambling, which is totally permitted, right? Like you can go on streaming and watch like sports betting ads and fucking online casino ads and poker competition ads just blast you in the face. This is what they're doing, right? This is part of the propaganda campaign. Like they want people doing that instead.
Oh yeah,
right?
Lottery. You look at the freaking lottery.
Yeah, right. It's
like who actually wins lotteries? I think
if they're worried about people
I
losing
don't
their
even think
money
it's real.
on bad investments, then why aren't they worried about people losing their money in an online casino?
Yeah, yeah, and the whole thing, like Sean,
they care about everyone's health. No, they don't. But we care about your teeth.
No, what they care about is who gets the money.
You're gonna put fluoride in all your water for your teeth.
Watch, look up the video of the CEO of Pfizer with his neck in that one interview. You guys seen that, right? I would struggle to find it the amount of time we have.
Is it gills?
It like does this freaking weird. It's creepy. You would think that's not a human. There's something weird there. Whatever. I don't want to be crazy. Anyway, okay. We have less than 10 minutes remaining. We have to cut hard at the 2 hour or else we can't rebroadcast and all that. Which, by the way, we do rebroadcast across to make sure people see it on Twitter's feed and all that. X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Good.
Musk land. We need to figure out if Musk is controlled, by the way, because there's some things that are interesting. I think Alex Jones is controlled, by the way. Anyway, what do you guys have for updates?
He's a comedian from the 80s. So.
Yeah, he is. That's him. I'm convinced.
Maybe it is, yeah.
I'm convinced.
I thought you were nuts until I actually went down the rabbit hole. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
That's him. What's his name? Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks.
Yeah.
Bill Hicks is Alex Jones. Too many obvious points. It's almost like it's a joke. Like they're making fun of us. Anyway, Sean, what do you have? What's going on this week?
Got a show in a little bit today, a couple of hours. Check me out on Tuesday, on Truth Tuesday. We do half on Lisa's channel and then half on mine. Yeah, it's usually pretty entertaining, pretty fun.
Go subscribe to Sean's show and Lisa's show. There's good stuff. Really good stuff. Greg, what's that? Go ahead.
Well, I've got.
Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
Am I going? Is my turn?
One more thing. It's bad.
Go for it.
So I can. Tell me we're dropping the lawsuit against the SEC across the board, all different states, because I look at it as good news. They are disappointed and sad. So for decades, people have been complaining about the qualified investor rule. Gotta stop calling things laws because they're not. Congress don't pass laws. Rule. But the SEC would never do anything. So that's why we were suing them to force the issue and fix it. But oddly, as soon as we started to sue them, they put out a letter that they were going to address it and work on it. So basically, they're going to do something bad. Most likely, they're going to come out on the wrong end of it, and then we're going to do something about it.
They're going to make it $25 million. You wanted us to raise that.
I think that's what they're probably going to do. But the fact that they said that they were going to work on it took the air out of the sails of the whole movement because they hadn't done anything. That was the whole basis for going after them. But we're probably going to end up doing it again, like in a year or so, whenever they come out with, whatever they did. But there are other things that they're looking at going after and working on, and I'm going to be working with them on that. So,
wow. Well, that's good. Let us know if we can help in any way, get people involved, sign petitions, give more info. Like say, I offered stuff similarly about the what was that? The chokehold, Operation Chokehold stuff. We've not heard anything back about it. I hope they actually are getting somewhere with it. So anyway, Greg, What's up?
Well, wanted to let everybody know that I have managed to acquire the Cypherpunk channel on Warpcast, and we're already in there talking about a limited set of things that people have done to further the cause of cypherpunk, i.e., what code have you written, what code should be written,
Nice.
and what
Catalog.
things we're up against, so that we know what code to write. And
That's good. That's good.
That is a thing that we have started doing. So come check us out on Warpcast. The channel is Cypherpunk.
Excellent. That's awesome. That's awesome. For me, I would say the updates would be that I'm going to try. I don't know if I can actually commit to it because sometimes meetings pop up and I don't even get to watch Sean's or Lisa's show. But I'm going to try to raid those shows this week, or at least get Sean to bring me on to cover some of this stuff that's like beyond. Maybe we're going to try to recover the lost interview, Sean's lost interview. So I'm going to try to do that. It's a new year. I'm also going to try to. I meant to do it today, but this is the first time I'm actually MC and I'm producer. I'm trying to run crap behind the scenes. So apologies when I screw stuff up, but I was going to wear a tie today. I'm going to try to start wearing a tie because I'm like, I haven't done that for years. I'm like, I'm going to start doing that. Right.
Just put a clip on your t-shirt, man. It's cool.
I could do that, but you wouldn't know if I did that. I'm joking.
You could just wear a tie without a collar.
No, I actually have this book that was written by these. I can't remember what they are. They're either physicists or they're molecular, or they actually analyze different tie knots. And I was like, it was interesting because I was never into topology or any of that. So I read this.
What's your favorite tie knot?
Years ago. Windsor, I think.
I'm a double Windsor guy.
But there are a couple of them that aren't even named. The two that are crazy. And like, so I'm going to start just wearing them randomly and see if you can guess them. All right, that's what I'll do. That'll be the game. All right. And otherwise, make sure you check us out next week. Make sure you do all the things and like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff you're supposed to do for the algorithms and all the BS. And thanks, guys. This is awesome. First show 2024. By the way, Year of the Dragon. We have to decide what that means. But the eclipse come in April 2024, and I think the SEC stuff hopefully be taken care of this year. I have no idea. I'll probably end up crucified, just so you know, and we'll just take it as we can, and hopefully it'll be paid attention to by the world at large, and we won't just be.
We're gonna show up in Spartacus it, man.
Current.
They're gonna have to go through us to get to you.
Right on. I might grow my beard back out, shave my head or something. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But anyway, you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you soon.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
It's not muted either, so I'm going to start doing this every time. So if you guys ever want to say anything and pretend like you didn't mean to say it, this would be the time to do it, right?
Oh, no.
I think we're still alive.
Oh, man.